Hi, I'm Pat with River's Edge Chef, and this evening I am going to be making a really nice fresh ginger cake. This ginger cake is like the perfect quick thing to make for a Christmas holiday or New Year's or even Thanksgiving, any time of the year really, but it's a quick and good cake. It's a light cake and it's made with half a cup of grated fresh ginger, so it has wonderful ginger flavor. This cake recipe is from, I believe it's the 7th edition of Joy of Cooking, and I used to make this quite frequently when I worked at the Sylvia Beach Hotel's table of contents because it was a really nice little dessert to put together. And it's a homey dessert, so it's really comforting and nice. So anyway, to begin with, we're using 1½ cups of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And you whisk that together real well so that it's all combined. And I've got my salt and my baking soda here, and my 1½ cup of flour. So I'm going to whisk this up, and then in a separate bowl, which is larger, I'm going to put in ½ cup of packed brown sugar. It can be light brown sugar or dark brown sugar. And I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of molasses. It's light molasses, and a 1/4 cup of Karo syrup, corn syrup, molasses, another ½ cup or 1/4 cup of molasses, or Lyle's golden syrup. And you can also use maple syrup if you don't have any of the other things. You know, it's just, you can use all molasses or a combination of molasses and the other syrups. Personally, I really like the flavor of the cake when it has a 1/4 cup of the light molasses and a 1/4 cup of the Karo syrup, which is a corn syrup. And the corn syrup is not the same as high fructose corn syrup. Corn syrup is just fine to use. Anyway, so we're going to combine this together. And 1 large egg, we're going to beat that into this as well. This is a recipe that I always make with a caramel sauce that you make with whipping cream, heavy whipping cream, some brown sugar, and a little bit of butter. And if you like, you can always add a little bit of vanilla to it as well. So we're going to mix this up. We're going to add our egg. The girls aren't laying eggs now, so we're using store-bought eggs. They're quite different. It comes together really quickly, so it's one of those things you can make on the fly. So when you first get started, you want to heat your oven to 350 degrees. And you're going to want to prepare a 9-inch pan like this. I put parchment paper in the bottom, and then I'm going to use a really good cooking spray that has flour in it. Otherwise, you want to grease your pan and flour it. Okay, and now I'm going to add my ½ cup of minced ginger. I put this through the food processor, and if your ginger root looks really nice and clean, you can just scrub it off and chop it up and then throw it in your food processor to grind it up. But this had a little bit of old skin to it, so I peeled it and then I ground it up. And now to this I'm going to add ½ cup of water that's been heated up with 1 stick of butter. And so it's melted, and you can either do this on top of the stove in a pan, or else you can heat it up in the microwave. But you just want to get it so that the butter is melted and it's not real hot, because you don't want to cook your egg when you add it to it. And this batter is actually fairly liquid. It's not a real thick batter. And now we're going to add the flour mixture. This is a nice cake to make to give away at Christmas too for presents. because it really holds really well. You can wrap this up with some cling film and it'll keep for several days really well, and if you can also freeze it and it keeps really well frozen. But you can see that it's really a pretty liquidy combination. I'm going to spray my pan. Okay, now it goes in the oven at 350, and it's going to take between 30 and 45 minutes to bake. It depends, because every time I make it, it's a little bit different on the time. I don't know if my oven heats unevenly or what it is, but it can sometimes take up to 45 minutes to be done. But always check it with a pick to make sure it comes out clean. Anyway, 30 to 45 minutes for baking at 350. That is quite a bit of time variation for the baking, but it's really important just to keep an eye on it and make sure it's thoroughly baked. And it'll be just barely pulling away from the sides of the pan when it's done, and the pick will come out clean. Anyway, we will get back to you just as soon as it's done. Okay, we're back with the ginger cake, our fresh ginger cake, and now I'm going to be making our caramel sauce to go with the ginger cake. I have 2 tablespoons of butter. I have 2 unpacked tablespoons of brown sugar that I'm going to add to it. And I'm going to turn on the flame down to about medium high, and we're going to get this melted and bubbling, and then I'm going to add a cup of heavy whipping cream to this. And basically what we're doing is making a reduced cream sauce, but sweet rather than a savory reduced cream sauce. So we call it a caramel sauce instead. And once it gets reduced down, we're going to add about a teaspoon of vanilla to it and stir it in. This is a really simple, wonderful sauce to go with the fresh ginger cake. It's really a crowd pleaser, and we love it here. This comes together real quickly. Doesn't take any time at all. And if you want to make more of this, just double your recipe. 1/4 cup of butter, 1/4 cup of brown sugar, not packed, because you don't want to pack it because you don't want it to be too sweet. You want it to be sweet enough, but not jaw-achingly sweet. So the sugar is dissolving and incorporating with the butter. This is a really great recipe to go with the ginger cake, but it also goes with a lot of other things too that's nice. You can use it as a topping for ice cream too. It's like the sugar is melting well here now. Now I'm going to add the whipping cream to it. Want it to reduce down so that it's thickened up. It'll be reduced down maybe by 1/4, and that way it'll be not too thick, but just thick enough to be nice and coating. Turn it up just a little bit to get it going good. And once it starts simmering, I'll turn it down. You want it basically to simmer so that you have little bubbles all the way across the top. Okay, now it's come up to a boil enough that it's going to be hard to stir down, so I'm turning it down. I'm going to move it off the heat a little bit and keep stirring. I'll move it back on, turn it down. It's still simmering. And if you're worried about it boiling over, all you have to do is just move it off the heat like this, stir some, stir it down, and then move it back on the heat. It's really easy to control. You just don't want to step off for very long if you're going to do something else. You want to keep an eye on this. It's just like any cream sauce. You have to pay attention to it. Okay, I think that's reduced down enough. It's coating the spoon really nicely and it's thickened up. You can feel resistance when you're stirring it. So I think I'm going to call that good. Anyway, I'm going to turn it off. And if you store this, if you have leftovers, you'll want to put it into an airtight container and maybe even press down some plastic wrap onto the surface of it because it will develop a skin, you know, which isn't horrible. You know, it's actually quite tasty skin if you want to just eat it off the top of the cream sauce. But anyway, it'll be prettier if you keep it from getting too much air on it. So airtight container with a little bit of plastic wrap on top.
And store it in the fridge? And
store it in the refrigerator, of course.
How long do you think you could store it for?
Oh, you could store it for at least a week, week and a half. That's beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous. So anyway, we're going to slice a piece of our ginger cake.
Are you adding vanilla?
Oh, that's right. We have vanilla to add too. Forgetting about that crucial step. About a teaspoonful. And when you're slicing your ginger cake, you want to make sure you use a serrated knife because of all the ginger fibers in it. Even though they're cut really finely, they still resist with a regular knife. So you're going to want to use a serrated knife to cut your ginger cake. It'll come out much nicer that way. There, it's nice and moist. It's beautiful. Take a ladle full of cream sauce, our caramel cream sauce, pour it over. You can also add some whipping cream to this, a whipped cream, which would be also very nice. But this is good enough for me. Anyway, this is it. A fresh ginger cake with a caramel cream sauce. It's lovely and delicious. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you'll come back again.